Hi, welcome to Cook Like a Caveman. I'm Larry. Today I've got an informative and educational episode. It's February right now, and this is the time of year that a lot of cultures make their dried hams. What they traditionally did that was a way of preserving because they didn't have refrigeration. They made their prosciuttos or serrano hams or speck and all that. I've got 3 bone-in hams that I got from work. Tasty, delicious, and luxurious. And I'd like to thank Anthony Bourdain for using the word luxurious in reference to food. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a way to prep your ham so that you don't have a bone while it's curing. It's going to shorten the cooking time, and you're not going to have to worry about the bone when you go to slice it. So you can slice it. This is going to be your ham when it's done. You're going to slice it like this. What a lot of places do is they have that rig that, you know, the hoof is still on it, the trotter, and it's clamped on, and they go like this, and it's parallel to the grain. This is going to be perpendicular to the grain, and it's going to be a lot better. It's going to be more like deli slice. And before I do this, this isn't like the chicken episode where you've got small bones. These are big bones, so we got to talk about safety. Be sure to read, understand, and know what you're doing, and for God's sakes, remember your mesh glove. That was a half-assed homage to Norm Abrams from the Yankee Workshop, who was without a doubt the best television carpenter in the world. And I've embarrassed myself saying it. It wasn't quite right, but I said it nonetheless. So put on a safety glove. You can get these. They can range anywhere from I don't know, $45 to pick a number. And you know what? What's your hand worth? So this, we're going to use a boning knife. Now this is a rental boning knife that I bought. And like I've said, they're cheap knives. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on a knife. You can if you want to, but you know, it's your money. And this is one that we got as a present once upon a time. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to sharpen it. I've got a honing steel. That's what they're called. And just a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and off we go. I have a video, if you'd like to see it, where I sharpened the knife not using any tools other than a coffee mug. So what we're going to do is right here is a bone called the H bone. And there's some meat here. And I'm going to pull that off. I'll go to the side of it so that you can see the action. We're going to save this meat. You've always got use for meat. Don't throw anything out. And you're going to go around. And I'd like to thank my boss right now, because he's the one that showed me how to do this. I've never actually done this before. I've made prosciutto once before. It was actually very tasty, but I took it out a little early, so we had to cook it before we served it, rather than having it dry cured. So here comes the H bone. And this is basically just the hip bone. I'm not quite sure where the H bone term comes up. Possibly Old English or Dutch. Most meat cutting practices come from Dutch tradition, so I wouldn't be surprised if it comes from there. So the H bone is removed, and what you have here, you have the knuckle, and that knuckle goes this way. Then there's a joint here, and what you've got here is the kneecap, and then there's another bone that ends up here. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to follow that bone. When I bone out hips at work, beef hips, there's no skin. And when I used to bone out pork legs, I would take the skin off. So there's a map of where all the muscles are that makes it a lot easier to seam everything. But I don't have that with this, because the idea is I want to keep as much skin as possible on, because that's going to help in the curing. So now I'm working. This muscle here in my gloved hand would be the sirloin tip if it were beef. And now what I want to do is I want to keep as much of the shank portion on this side of the bone on the sirloin tip, because I'm going to cure these as well as prosciuttinos. I'm going to make them spicy. I'm going to make 3 hot. Two of the hams are going to be regular prosciutto, and I'm going to make 1 country ham for Easter, which will be really, really amazing. And it'll be the first time I've made that as well. So I see one of the keys here is that you don't want any scoring. Every time you score, the crowd goes wild. But other than that, it increases the surface area of the meat. If you don't salt it right, you get bacteria in there, and you're going to have to cut part of your meat away that you won't be able to eat. And when you're talking about a loss of 30% or more of the meat, once it's dried, you want to keep as much of it as you can. This is taking a little longer to do than when I did the chickens. But I've done the chickens for years. And my lovely assistant Grace just went into camera shot. So here's a sirloin tip, and what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much leave it like this. I might cut some of this off, because I can use that in a goulash or pasta. And then this will be salted and dried. And I got my 3 bins here. And again, talk about value, I got these at a dollar store. And they weren't made in China, they were actually made in Canada, which was amazing. So I'll put the tips. I'll actually cut a couple inches off right now. So it's gonna be like this, and what's gonna happen is when I go to tie it, and it'll be on other videos, is I'll tie it here and it'll hang like that for 7 or 8 months. So here's what I got now. I've got the shank here on the ham hock, and I've got this bone here. Now I have to very carefully take this off without scoring the meat. I've got 2 more of these to do. Each one will be a little closer, just like the chicken video. Scoring is when you scratch. So if I were to take the knife, Grace just asked what scoring means. So if I take my knife and I make an edge in here, I open a flap, and that's scoring. Or in hockey, it's when you score a goal. Or soccer, or in rugby, it's called a try. Okay, you got that bone. And now this last bone. If you want to try making prosciutto and you don't want to do this, you can absolutely hang it bone in, but then you have to bone it out when it's dried. Or, if you know your butcher, and you better be shopping at a shop that has a butcher, you can ask them to do it. Now, I've been cutting meat for almost 30 years, and I only just learned how to do this, so they might not know. You can ask them to watch this video. I would appreciate it. So here it's done. Okay. Now, when my boss did it, he actually made it shaped round. And I'm not making any sausage today, so I think that's kind of a waste. And it's nice and clean in here. So I have no scoring that I have to worry about salt penetration. So I'm just going to leave this as is. Okay, now what we'll do is all the bones and whatnot will go into another bucket. Try to keep the workspace as clean as possible. We'll move the camera a little closer. And number 2. That one was tasty. This one is delicious. So, excuse me. So again, the H-bone. What's really, I just thought of this. When you work in a factory processor, they will teach you to be an expert on 1 or 2 parts of an animal, and only on one side. And that's really unfortunate for not only for the employee, but for the company. If you could learn how to do whole hog butchering if you work in a pork plant, or whole beef butchering, you have just made yourself far more valuable to the company. You have just shortened any slowdowns for the company, because you have more versatile employees, so that if people call in sick, and they always do, you have someone to take over the spot. So the H-bone is out once again, and again I'm going to score along this shank here, come through, work my way up. This one I'm doing a little bit different. The order doesn't really matter, it's the consistency of movements that you know, make sure that everything is coming off properly. Normally when I bone out a ham, it takes me less than a minute. This isn't taking me less than a minute. Now on beef, this is the sirloin tip, and right here, this area here would be the top sirloin. That's the bottom round, and that's the top of the inside round. So, go like that. And I would try to do this in slow mo. I feel like I'm doing it in slow motion. And it's too bad YouTube doesn't have a slow motion button. Okay, there we go. The sirloin tip is off. These are going to be the prosciuttinos. Take that bit off so that make some pasta sauce tonight, and that goes into a bucket. Now I've just got to take this bone out. And I'd like to thank Frank right now for showing me how to do this, because you know what, this makes a whole lot of sense to take this off. It saves such a hassle when you're done, and it shortens the curing time by like 6 months. Reduces the amount of salt you have to use, so it reduces the sodium. And there we go. There's number 2. And again, this one's pretty, I got a little scoring here. I'm just going to take that part off there, and that's clean up all nice. And there, 2 legs out of the way. And now luxurious. Okay, camera's going to be right on top. There we go. So again, I'm going to try, it's going to be kind of overhead, but not quite. I'm going to probably move around a bit. So here's the H-bone here, so that you've got some meat here. I'll just clean that off. And that'll go in tonight's spaghetti sauce. Go around. The H-bone all nice and clean. There is nothing better than homemade prosciutto. Like there's some real authentic prosciuttos that are being sold now in North America from Italy, and Serrano hams from Spain. They're like $90 to $100 a kilo, and that's the quality that you're looking for when you make this. So the H-bone is off. Here's the knuckle bone of that one bone. And we're gonna do our best to run parallel to it. Let me take that off. Okay. And it's gotten a little well worn, so I'll just sharpen it up a bit. There's not many videos on YouTube where you see stuff like this. There's one guy, Scott Ree, he does a really awesome job. And there's my new friends at Salted Pig on Facebook. Give a shout out to them. They're, you know what, I'll tell you something. I know a fair amount about the business, and about cutting meat, but spent 4 hours on that the other day, and it just blew my mind with little tips and tricks that people did that, you know, we keep talking about how all these skills are being lost, but you know what? They're alive and well. They're just peppered in small pockets. Now, this one, turn over. Now this is your kneecap. Its medical term is the patella. That will be on a test. You will be quizzed. Okay. This knife is probably not designed for the duties that I'm giving it today. So again, sirloin tip, nice. That is going to make some pretty awesome prosciutto. And now here, what we're going to do is we're just going to very carefully cut the bone off. Now the rule is when you're making prosciutto, you cure it in salt. The general rule is 1 pound a day. This way is nowhere near that. I'm going to have this hanging within 4 days. And there we go. I'll just break those 2 joints. And there we go. This one is, it's probably the worst of the 3. It normally doesn't take me that long. I was getting a little bit frustrated. So here we go. We have 3 pork legs. It only took about 12 minutes to do all 3. And what's going to happen is on another episode, which we're going to film in a minute, I'm going to just clean these up a little bit, salt them, and put them in the basement fridge. So, here's where I normally say if a caveman can do it, you can do it. And you can do this. It takes, for someone who's not a meat cutter, it probably takes a lot longer than it did for me, and it shouldn't have taken me this long, and I do apologize for that. But this is one of the great ways that you can get back into a relationship with your food, something that people say we're missing. So thank you for watching. Please like and share this video and subscribe, of course. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below or email them to cooklikeacaveman@outlook.com. And as I said, if a caveman can do this, you can do this. We'll see you again.